Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from around the globe. This is your host, bringing you another sweet story on our channel, and today we have a truly powerful and unfiltered message that demands our attention. We're going to dive deep into a recent address that has sent ripples across the international media landscape, a speech delivered by Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a name that's become synonymous with a new, defiant voice from the African continent. In a direct challenge to the established narratives, Captain Traoré began by declaring, and I quote, "I'm archiving every distortion. I am Ibrahim Traoré, and today I'm pulling off your masks. Yes, you heard correctly. I, whom you call a young military hunter leader, whom you brand as a dangerous radical, whom you serve up as an anti-Western dictator, am truth. And this time you cannot turn off your microphones. This time you cannot turn away your cameras. This time your editors cannot cut this speech because the world you monopolized no longer exists. Because millions will hear these words now without passing through your filters, without being subjected to your distortions, without being muddied by your lies. This opening statement is a direct assault on what he perceives as a monopolized global media and a promise of unfiltered truth. He's not just speaking to a local audience, he's leveraging the power of global communication to bypass traditional gatekeepers and reach millions directly. It's a declaration of independence from media control. Captain Traoré, who states he is 37 years old, shared a deeply personal reflection on his upbringing, recounting how he, like many, internalized the prevailing Western media portrayals of Africa. He stated, "Every day of my life I grew up with your lies. As a child I would watch Africa on television, always the same images. Children with flies, dry lands, weapons, death. This is Africa, they told us. This is what Africa is." And we believed it. We were ashamed of ourselves. We were ashamed of our own lands, of our own people. This poignant revelation speaks to the insidious nature of long-term media conditioning and the psychological impact it can have on an entire generation. He then described his journey of awakening. "But then I grew up. I read. I researched. I questioned. And I understood that the Africa you showed us wasn't real. The story you told us was a lie. The fate you imposed on us was a script you had written for years." This highlights a critical theme, the power of self-education and critical thinking in dismantling preconceived notions and manufactured realities. He continued his scathing critique of how Africa is presented, saying, "How have you portrayed Africa? How have you shown it? How have you sold it to your viewers? As if we were creatures who had no share of humanity, as if we were savages left outside of civilization, as if we were wretches waiting for you to save us." He meticulously analyzed the vocabulary used by Western media when referring to Africa. Every day, every hour, every minute, the same story plays on your screens. Hunger, war, disease, corruption, terror, chaos. These are the words that come to mind when Africa is mentioned. In your Africa dictionary, there are no other words. No hope, no success, no development, no resistance, no honor, no pride, no victory. This isn't just about negative reporting. It's about the deliberate exclusion of positive narratives and the systematic denial of African agency, resilience, and progress. Captain Traoré then directly challenged major news outlets, calling them out by name. So I ask you, New York Times, Washington Post, Guardian, Le Monde, have you ever made Africa's successes your headlines? How many times have you written about Rwanda's technology miracle? How many times have you shown Ethiopia's reforestation project? How many times have you praised Botswana's democratic success? How many times have you described Kenya's entrepreneurial ecosystem? No, because these don't fit your scenario. Your Africa cannot be successful. It cannot, because then how will you legitimize your exploitation? If it's not in need of help, how will you intervene? If it's not backward, how will you look down on it? This is a key point in his argument. The portrayal of Africa as perpetually in crisis is a prerequisite for continued exploitation and intervention. Success, in his view, undermines the very foundation of this exploitative relationship. He then posed a fundamental question that cuts to the heart of the matter. Have you ever asked yourselves, has any editor sitting at their desk, any news director in a meeting, any columnist at their keyboard ever thought, why are the people of the world's richest lands poor? This rhetorical question sets the stage for his next segment, where he presents a stark contrast between Africa's vast natural wealth and the poverty of its people. He then provided a series of staggering statistics, quoting, "Here are the numbers for you, real numbers. Africa owns 70% of the world's cobalt reserves. Your cell phone, your computer, your electric car won't work without cobalt. This cobalt comes from Congo, but Congolese can't afford cell phones. Africa owns 90% of the world's platinum reserves. Catalytic converters, electronic devices, medical implants, they all need platinum. This platinum comes from South Africa. But South Africans are crushed by unemployment. Africa provides 30% of the world's gold production. Mali, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Tanzania. Gold flows like rivers from our lands, but our people swim in poverty. Africa supplies 65% of the world's diamond production. Botswana, Angola, Congo, Sierra Leone. Billions of dollars worth of diamonds are extracted, but our miners live on $1 a day. Africa owns 35% of the world's uranium reserves. Niger, Namibia, South Africa. Nuclear plants run on our uranium. Paris lights burn with our uranium, but our villages have no electricity. These figures are not just numbers. They are a powerful indictment of a system that allows immense wealth to be extracted, while the source remains impoverished. He concluded this section with a pivotal rephrasing of the common question. And you still ask, why is Africa poor? No. The right question is, how was Africa kept poor while being so rich? This reframing shifts the blame from inherent African deficiency to external systemic forces. Captain Traoré then offered his answer, declaring, "Colonialism didn't end. It changed shape. You used to come and occupy our lands, now you come and establish companies. You used to take by force, now you make agreements. You used to rule with the whip, now you rule with credit." This analysis suggests a continuity of colonial practices, albeit in a more insidious economic form. He didn't shy away from naming names and providing examples, stating, "Let me give you concrete examples with numbers, names, dates, but you'll never write about these. Glenore, Swiss-based mining giant, extracting cobalt in Congo. 2022 revenue, $256 billion, a tax paid to Congo, $500 million. That's 0.2%. Is this justice? Rio Tinto, British-Australian mining giant, extracting bauxite in Guinea, 20 million tons annually. What's left for Guinea? Environmental pollution and cancer. Total Energies, French oil giant, extracting oil in Angola, Nigeria. Congo 2022, profit $36 billion investment in Africa. Dirty Pipelines, Anglo-American, founded in South Africa, but now in London. Diamonds, platinum, iron, taking everything. What it left in South Africa, 6 million. Unemployed miners. These specific examples with names and figures add substantial weight to his claims, transforming abstract criticisms into tangible grievances. He then delved into the invisible mechanisms of exploitation, highlighting, and these are just the tip of the iceberg. What about the invisible? The secret deals, the offshore accounts, the transfer pricing tricks. Every year, $88 billion in illegal money flows out of Africa. Who writes about this? Every year, $4 billion in aid comes to Africa. Everyone writes, "Chill about this," but no one says Africa is not the continent receiving aid. It's the continent giving aid. This is a profound reversal of the widely accepted narrative of Africa as a recipient of aid, presenting it instead as a net donor of wealth. He continued to explain the system of extraction. While you zoom your cameras on swollen bellies, there is a huge system working silently in the background. Every day, tons of gold, diamonds, cobalt, uranium, oil leave our land. But how? Here is the system. Step 1, create corruption. Bribe our leaders, open offshore accounts, promise them a life of luxury. Send their children to your schools. Step 2, make deals. Get 50-year, 99-year concessions. Ask for tax exemptions. Be exempt from environmental rules. Ignore labor rights. Step 3, control the infrastructure. Take over ports, airports, railways, but only from the mine to the harbor. Don't build roads to the villages. Don't bring electricity to schools. Step 4, provide security. Set up private security companies, arm them, declare protesting. Step 5. Silence the media. Buy local journalists, suppress opposing voices, serve internal unrest news to international media. This 5-step process paints a chilling picture of a meticulously crafted system designed to maintain control and facilitate resource extraction, all while projecting an image of chaos and instability. Captain Traoré then directly implicated the media, stating, "And this is how the system works. It's been working like this for 100 years, and you don't see this system. You don't want to see it because you're part of the system too." Who are? The biggest advertisers of New York Times, CNN, BBC, oil companies, mining companies, arms companies, pharmaceutical cartels. The companies that exploit Africa. You live on their money. You defend their interests. This is a powerful accusation of media complicity, suggesting that financial ties to exploitative industries compromise journalistic integrity. He acknowledged the personal risk involved, declaring, "And what I'm about to tell you might cost me my life, but it's no longer time to be silent." He then moved on to specific examples of continuing colonial influence, beginning with France. France's system in Africa is the CFA franc. 14 African countries still use French colonial currency. 50% of these countries' central bank reserves sit in the French treasury. France applies negative interest to this money. So we pay France to use our own money. Through this system, France transfers 500 billion worth of resources from Africa every year. Does anyone write about this? No, but when France gives Africa 10 billion euros in aid, it makes headlines. This specific breakdown of the CFA franc system is a compelling illustration of ongoing economic control. He then highlighted the UK's role. Britain's system is more sophisticated. London is the world's money laundering centre. City of London offshore paradise. Every penny stolen from Africa passes through London. Jersey, Guernsey, Cayman Islands, Virgin Islands, all under British control. Africa's wealth hides there. And the US. America's system is AFRICOM. Africa Command, 46 military bases on the continent. Official purpose, security. Real purpose, resource control. Drones in our airspace every day. Listening devices everywhere. They say fighting terrorism. But it's not terrorists, it's people's leaders who are targeted. Finally, he addressed China's growing presence. China is the new player, says win-win. Builds infrastructure, gives credit, but in exchange for what? 99-year port concessions, mining rights, agricultural lands, debt trap, diplomacy. Ask Sri Lanka, ask Zambia, and you write about none of this. His concluding remarks brought his focus back to the media, asserting, "Why? Because you're not free press. You're corporate press. Your bosses are billionaires. Jeff Bezos bought Washington Post. Why, for love of journalism? Rupert Murdoch's media empire, Fox News, Wall Street Journal, The Sun, The Times, all from the same hand, all giving the same message. West is good, others are bad." Carlos Slim is the largest shareholder of New York Times, Mexican billionaire. Where's his wealth from? Monopolized telecommunications, got rich off Latin America's back, now controls America's most respected newspaper, and you claim to do independent journalism. He challenged the perceived independence of these outlets by exposing their ownership and financial interests. He further questioned the homogeneity of journalistic perspectives. Who are your editors? Which schools did they graduate from? Harvard, Yale, Oxford, Cambridge. Always the same elite schools, always the same worldview, always the same prejudices. How are your reporters selected? How many languages does your Africa correspondent speak? French, English, that's all. Swahili, Hausa, Yoruba. This final point underscores a lack of cultural understanding and linguistic immersion, which he suggests contributes to a superficial and biased portrayal of the continent. This address by Captain Ibrahim Traoré is a powerful and provocative indictment of global power structures and their alleged impact on Africa. It calls for a fundamental re-evaluation of how Africa is perceived, reported on and interacted with by the rest of the world. It's a speech that demands listeners to question the narratives they consume and consider the possibility of a different, more complex truth. And that, my dear listeners, is a sweet story for thought. We'll be back with more analyses and discussions on topics that truly matter. Stay tuned.